For today's main program, I'm pleased to introduce Anna Liotta. Anna is one of the most highly sought after thought leaders and consultants on generational inclusion and leadership, with a client list that includes Amazon, Bloomberg, Coca-Cola, Microsoft, and the NBA. Anna is the founder of the Generational Institute, author of the best-selling Unlocking Generational Codes, and president of the National Speakers Association for the 2019-2020 year. Her most impressive generational credential: she's the youngest girl of 19 children. That means every Thanksgiving, graduation, and wedding is a case study in generational communications and relationship building. When she's not keynoting or volunteering, you'll find her at a dog park with her Labradoodle puppy named Golfin. Anna, over to you.
Thank you, Jeff. It is so good to be back with you, my fellow Rotarians. It's great to see you, Ken Fedva. It's great to see you, Stephen Morris. Welcome to Rotary. We're so delighted that you're here. And you know what? If you can hear me, go ahead and drop in the chat. What's one of the things that inspired you to be here today? Maybe it was something that you specifically wanted to learn. Maybe it was a tip that you wanted to get. Go ahead and drop it in the chat. What inspired you to be here today? Maybe it was just being together with your fellow Rotarians while we are all together before the final meeting of the year, the Christmas meeting. Go ahead. What's to listen to you? Oh, thank you, Fedva. All right. And what are some other things? Watching Ken Grant dance, of course. That's what we want to do. Always want to learn more on leadership. Thank you, Chief Scoggins. Good to have you all here. Continue to put those things, make virtual connection more meaningful, learn some new community. All good reasons to be here. Now, today's going to be both interactive and experiential. So if you haven't had a chance to turn on your camera and you're able, go ahead and do so, because we're going to be interacting together throughout the program. What I want to communicate is that one of the things that we're all sharing in common is that we as leaders at every level of organizations are having to lead and live through times of extraordinary change and challenge, but also opportunity. One of the engineers from Google X, Astro Teller, isn't that a great name for an engineer from Google X? Astro Teller. He suggested that if we right now look at society's rate of change and where we are in human history, that we might actually find that we have come to a point where we have met the moment where the world and the technology and change that's happening is actually outpacing our human ability to adapt. Where we are right now is we're right here. The world and the speed at which things are evolving has outpaced our human ability to adapt. Now, if you're feeling that way, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. Give me a thumbs up if that's how you're feeling right now, that you're feeling like things like that have actually happened to you. Okay, I see some thumbs up. How about some hand waves? All right, there you go. All right, so you're in good company, because what I've found through my clients, both consulting and coaching, as well as audiences, is that right now, this massive amount of change that's going on has made people hungry, has sparked an interest in new models and new beliefs and approaches to how we gather, to how we lead, and to how we communicate. And to come to those new approaches, we really want to know how to lead our people into unlocking their collective wisdom. And what that means for us as leaders is that we have to elevate our capacity to ask great questions. If the speed of change is beyond our capacity to adapt, we have to actually be able to ask those great questions that include other voices in the dialogue, those questions that are positive and move us forward in our thinking. Because today, the currencies in the workplace have changed. The currencies of meaning are evolving. So from the beginning, the meanings and the currencies of money have always been there. You exchange time for money. But today, those currencies are evolving to have happiness as a currency. Do I love what I do? And do I like the people I do it with? The currency of stability? Do I feel like I have agency to make choices that are best for me and for my family? The currency of significance. Do I feel like working with you makes me part of something greater than myself? That's a currency that Rotary has in spades. And the currency of compassion. Do I feel like my lived experience is one that you honor, one that you value? Last week, I was working with one of my biotech clients. I was consulting on their all hands meeting, and it was a 3-hour-long meeting, but right in the middle at noon on the dot, everything stopped. And for 2 hours, we could not meet because they have put the currency of compassion in place, where from 2 to 2:30, there are no meetings globally scheduled. No meetings globally, because they're committed that their people have time to care for their families, have time to take care of their needs. So they put in a practice from 2 to 2, from 12 to 2, no meetings can happen. Now, it probably is no surprise that this is also one of the companies that frequently is on the best places to work list, because they know that their people know they care about them. The good news is these currencies work for everyone. What we find is that there are things that our baby boomers dreamed of, like work-life balance, and our Gen Xers desired, like having work with meaning, but our millennials demand. They want to have a voice at every meeting. And our globals, well, they just believe they deserve it. They deserve and believe they deserve to have crowdsourced solutions. It's no longer okay to have command and control. Now it's crowdsourced collaboration. So as leaders, how we engage the multi-generational voices in the conversation is more important than ever, because people's needs right now are at a heightened and raw and real feeling. If you've noticed this as well, drop in the chat why for yes, yes, yes. If you've noticed this raw sense of heightened needs, go ahead and drop it. There you go. Thanks, Jeff. Why for yes, yes, yes. Lori, yes, there you go. Similar components. Yes. Vedva, Lindsay. Okay, so we're in good company here. But what we have to understand is that right now, this increased demand on resources, both mental and emotional, requires that as leaders, we're signaling to people that we get it, that we understand, that we feel what they're feeling, and that we are creating ways to engage them in the conversation and give them those currencies of meaning that they value. So in every virtual meeting, in every touchless interaction, we're communicating signals, signals of compassion, signals of credibility, signals of relatability. In fact, just in the time together today, you've seen a lot of those signals. These are things that you're very familiar with in the face-to-face, from dress codes to protocols to how you set up your office. But for your virtual executive presence to have power, you need to be able to reinvent those signals in this modality, in this reality. So let's take a moment now, pause, pull back the curtain, and look at what are some of the signals that have been happening just in our time together. Everybody go ahead and get a pen and hold it up to the camera. Get a piece of paper, a pen, something, hold it up, wiggle. Thank you, Stephen. I see you there wiggling it. Jeff and Catherine, okay. I see that you're all ready. Because what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna pull back the curtain and we're gonna talk about what are some of the signals of engagement that I have sent to you today to say, I wanted your voice. Go ahead and take a note, or you know what, just drop it in the chat. What are some of the ways that I asked you to participate today? What are some of the ways that I let you know the tone of the meeting today? Yes, Eric, I asked you to turn on your camera. And I said, if you're able. That's an inclusion moment, not to shame anybody if they can't, but to include them if they can. I said the names out loud. That's right, Stephen. I let you know that I'm seeing you, I'm hearing you. I welcomed our newest member. I honored your traditions. Very good, Virginia. Your direct eye contact with the camera. Absolutely. Yes, William, that is so true. And in fact, that's even a credibility signal. That's one of the things that we do to let people know that we're talking directly to them, not at them. You mentioned names and connected with us with your natural smile. Thanks, Ken. Exactly. I greeted you when you logged on. Yes, Dominic. Before the meeting ever starts, you want to create the tone from that moment. So people know this is a conversation. This is a dialogue. This is an exchange. This is not just the sage on the stage speaking at you, but we are co-creating this conversation today. Excellent examples. All right, let's look at some of the credibility signals that are part of my virtual presence. So before I ever got on here today, I made some curated choices to signal to you that I'm ready and I'm relevant. You pointed out already the direct contact to the camera with my eyes. I'm not constantly looking down here unless I verbally signal to you that I'm going to look at the chat. Then I'm looking down. Otherwise, I'm having a direct and intimate conversation with you, because we oftentimes disengage when other people are disengaged from us. So being able to speak directly into the camera is like that protocol of the firm or solid handshake. People don't know it, but it makes them relax and connect. Then my camera is on my direct eye line. Even though I'm standing up, I got my camera so that it would be direct in line with me. Again, signaling that I made that curated choice and prepared before we came together today. Then my lighting. My lighting is not at the mercy of the clouds passing by in Seattle. My lighting is chosen to fill the space around me. So it makes me easy to connect with. It makes me approachable. Yes, David Woodward, the bookshelves behind me are color coordinated. Awesome observation. I color blocked the bookshelves behind me to calm and to give focus. People notice it, and then they come back to connection with me. But it says a couple of things. It says I'm organized, and it says I'm a well-read thought leader. These are real books. These are the things that I read. And Lori, we see more of you, not just your head. Absolutely. I've chosen my frame. I've chosen to be close enough to the camera, not way back here where I don't look like I'm a thought leader because I'm way back here. I've chosen to frame myself with that executive presence because I know that when you're in the room, you fill the space. So I was very conscious about how much of that. Plus, I chose a color behind me that was complementary to my skin tones. All of those choices are choices that say, I thought about it before. With my lighting's not coming from behind me and making me look like I'm in the witness protection program. You know who you are. So all of these choices are credibility signals. Ken, you said it also says I'm OCD, that I've got them color blocked. Secrets there, but could be true. So these are credibility signals that we're doing. What we noticed at the beginning of the pandemic is as we transitioned to this virtual reality, we found ourselves in a couple of different spaces. One space that we found ourselves in was a space of being somewhat apologetic. We weren't quite ready for this yet. We didn't have all the things in place, and sometimes we were confused. That was okay at that moment because there was a lot of space and grace for that. In fact, some of us actually dropped below the line and we were quite avoidant. We said, this isn't how I do business. This isn't what I love. And so we really avoided. But most of us have moved up the ladder of value to our clients by becoming basically competent in what we do. Unfortunately, this is where a lot of people stopped. The ability to turn on the camera, find the mute button, and yes, the most commonly said phrase in 2020 is, you're still on mute. Around the world, everyone knows that phrase. But this is actually where many people stopped and where you have a chance to get ahead of your competitors. Because when you move above that to at least being capable, and really, more importantly, into being fluent, where you're using the language of this modality to serve your message, to advance your initiative, you now start to have magic. But the real competitive advantage comes when you move into experiential excellence, when you are designing and curating each choice, when you make the call of what they see and when they see it, how they experience your materials, your products, your solutions, your leadership. Experiential excellence is made by a series of choices about how you sequence things, how you choreograph things. A lot of times my meetings and programs now are no longer 30, 60 minutes of a presentation. They're 90 minutes or 2 hours of an interactive play of dialogue between me and the client. We go into small breakout rooms where we frame powerful questions for them to examine. So all of these elements and sequences are important to how you craft things. Before we go to questions, I'll do just a couple more thoughts on the sequencing and experiential. You noticed how I started off, direct eye contact to camera, and then quickly moved you over to my iPad where I drew out a drawing and made sure that I popped in with picture in picture so we weren't apart from each other too long, that we stayed connected. Then I brought you over to highly produced slides and again popped back in so we stayed in connection. Can you see how I curated the experience for you to have so that you didn't have to do that extra work? I chose each one of those things so that I helped you relax and guided you along in that executive presence. So, Ken, I think we're going to go to you for some questions now, if you want to come in and open up. And I've got one more tip that I'm going to share with folks if we have time, but we'll go ahead and bring you in, Ken.
I love coming into these conversations. So while we wait for questions, I am curious, as an ex-speaker, you said before pulling back the curtain, would you mind pulling back the curtain as to what you've teased us to how you've connected, but show us some of the hardware that's behind you. I mean, apart from the OCD wall, which personally I completely 100% understand.
Excellent.
Pull it back. Show us, like, you know, these lights and cameras and the, you know, toggles that you speak of. Can you show us all?
I can absolutely show you all of that. All right, let's get you ready here. Okay, so here's what's happening behind the scenes. This is what it looks like. Hello. In my reality right now. I've got it set up where on my main screen, I've got the gallery of people and the chat going on so that I can see what people are thinking about. I'm switching between the scenes with this little switcher of ATEM Black Magic, where I've got the first input being my main Mac, then my slides, then my iPad, and then of course, the fourth camera that you're on right now. Over here, I've got what you're seeing on a confidence monitor. And over here, we've got my slides and things that I'm toggling to. So I'm using my iPad down here to draw in real time, but each one of these things is set up so that we can sequence between them with just the tap of a finger. Now, this is all possible with Google and codes, control codes, that you can actually toggle back and forth between things. You can, of course, toggle between them at the bottom as well, but the codes help you toggle between things when you are wanting to make it more smooth and fluid. I spend a lot of time with clients helping them think through their sequence of what's next. What experience do they want to have? Where do they want to bring in sound or music or visuals so that they have that rich multi-generational appeal?
I am curious, just before we get into the questions then, how much practice did you, I mean, I've known you for a long time and we're good mates, but you've never had to use any of this before. You pivoted early and now you're teaching the rest of us to pivot. How much practice did you do? Because that's a lot of stuff that, you know, the average person, one, doesn't know how to go by. Two, you just don't plug that stuff in and obviously, you know, look like today. So how much practice did you do?
Yeah, that's a great question. I do have the fortune of having an undergraduate background in television production and also theater. So that helped me early on understand the breadth and the concept of what we wanted to do. But the practice is essential. So when I'm crafting anything, whether it's collaborating, Beth and I had an opportunity to collaborate on her wonderful women's leadership breakfast for the Seattle Sports Commission. We practiced and did tech checks and did run of shows, and we planned that all out. But I still do that level of practice even for this speech today. Since it's the first time I've given this particular speech, I still wrote out what I was going to say and then drew out the beat by beat. I'll be on this camera and then I'll transition to this with this button, and then I'll come back and I would put the beat of what I wanted to say with the image that I wanted to have at that same time. And then, and this is really important for everyone, I went through it a number of times so I could feel it in my body. So in the moment, you could actually use that cadence and sequence and still have part of mind available to the conversation.
Good. So I've got one tip for you, which takes a lot of guts to give somebody like you a tip. You should bring that, if this is a brand new speech, you should bring that level of prep into your speech itself, because that prep, we're all used to prep. So it makes us then go, well, hell, this isn't, she didn't just wake up this morning and look like this and do this. She had a lot, right? So we have ourselves that amount of prep to do.
Yeah.
But it is not as easy as it looks, because nothing is easy. We all had to do something once the first time.
That's
right. You have
right.
the guts to go do it, but then you have to go practice, and we all have to go practice. Any pitch, we all practice that kind of stuff. Anyway, all right, on to the question.
Because for our clients, this is exactly what we're doing when we plan out through our presence, through our preparation, them to be able to relax and feel like this is a flow. This has happened so many times, because they right now are burning more calories than they've ever burned before dealing with uncertainty. Yeah. And we want to decrease that through our choices that we make, whether it's a sales call, whether it's a team meeting, whether it's just a one-on-one client conversation. When we think through all of those things about how our presence is going to land for them, it makes all the difference to them. But yes, it's going to take thinking and practice beforehand.
Yeah, good. All right, so enough about me. Let's get into some of these questions. We've got about 11 minutes. So what tools have you found that work best for online brainstorming and strategic planning, asks Chief Skunkins.
Okay, Chief, I have got some wonderful things for online brainstorming, so get ready. And by the way, at the end, I'm going to give you, if you'd like, a blueprint with a checklist of tools that you can use. So I'm going to give you this one right off the bat. It's called Mural. M-U-R-A-L, Mural. And that's a wonderful online tool where everyone can get in there. And just like you would if you had Post-it notes on the wall and people were drawing on those Post-it notes and you wanted to add pictures and that kind of thing, Mural allows you to do that for like $20 a month. And it's a really powerful tool that no matter where you are, you can visually collaborate and everyone can be moving things around in the same time. Another one that is really good is called Padlet. It's another tool that allows you for that online collaboration. And when it comes to strategic planning, I spent a lot of time over COVID really going deeper into appreciative inquiry and how to facilitate people in and out of appreciative inquiry conversations in this Zoom format. So it's really important that you have somebody that can work with you about how to have the conversation together and then go into smaller groups, 3, 4, and 5, where people can dig deeper into the conversation and then come back out and share. It accelerates the process of strategic planning when you allow that kind of breaking out into small groups where every voice is heard and then coming back together.
Yeah, that's awesome, especially for the younger generation, as you pointed out in that other slide. They deserve it, they want it, they desire it. Like, why am I not involved? I don't care where I am on the pecking order. I got some input, right? All right, next question. You're getting lots of compliment. You're getting this sort of the diversity between compliments about your setup and people having a meltdown. Like, there's no way I could learn to, but that's kind of cool because at least we're seeing it, right? How do you handle groups who generally will not turn on their cameras?
Okay, so this is a really great question. So one of the first things that we're going to do is, in most meetings, 20 minutes is a little too short, I will send people into breakouts very quickly, just to do a quick thing like a treasure hunt. saying, okay, so we're going to be going into breakout rooms now, and I'm going to ask you to find something that makes you smile, something that really makes you smile. And maybe they'll come back and they'll have, you know, a glass heart, and find something that you've been meaning to get rid of since the beginning of COVID. All right, we're going to go into small breakout rooms. This is a quick way to get to know each other, something that makes you smile, something that you've been meaning to get rid of. Very quickly, they will get their cameras on because they now know, okay, wait a second, I'm going to be interacting with people and I want to connect with them. The other thing is the pre-communications. With all of my clients, I help them write pre-communications when they would like about what we're going to be doing so people know the value and the why of their camera being on, and they have time to prep to get their camera on. Now, again, inclusion, I always say, if you are able, because they might have kids there. They might have other people around them that they can't. Now, that's one of the other interesting things about this biotech company. They made a policy that children are welcome in any meeting. If your child comes into the room and they need your attention, you have full permission to push the mute button and take care of your child and then come back to the meeting. So how do you signal that their camera is on and yes, their life can be included in the meeting?
I've been rendered speechless, so that's funny. Sit down. All right, next question. Tell us about the future. Will Zoom be a thing after COVID?
100%. Great question, Dominic. Zoom will be a thing forever. There is no going back to pre-COVID where we don't know that things can be delivered in this format. So you're always going to need to have an up-leveled presence virtually. Now, what will happen is that we'll ask better questions about why should we physically get together? And we'll start to make choices between what do we need to do together physically and what can we actually handle on Zoom so we use our time together in the most richest variety. So we will have both and you'll probably see more people using Zoom because let's be clear, right now, what we have demonstrated, and I told my clients for years that we would have more people working remote, particularly with our millennials and our globals. But what's happened now is we've proven it. We've proven that remote work works. And so with a click of a room and a boom, you're in a new Zoom room and you're working for someone else. So if you don't demonstrate these different currencies of meaning to your people, they can easily work for anyone. One of my association clients right now has been able to hire talent in Arizona because they were limited by the geography. But once they went all virtual, they've been hiring talent from around the world to fill positions. So Zoom will always be a thing.
Okay, good. All right, we've got about 6 minutes left. Laurie asks, do you normally have all groups share after a breakout session?
Okay, so here's the way that you language it. People come back from a breakout session and you say, all right, I want to hear from 1, 2, or 3 of you what you learned in your breakout session. Now you can always do more than 3, but what you want to set up is 1, 2, or 3, or maybe you say 2, 3, or 4 of you. So it's not everyone sharing, but you're listening as the person that's facilitating the session for when the key elements of what happened in the breakout rooms get expressed. So you frame it by saying 1, 2, or 3, 2, 3, or 4, but never say more than that because that commits you to too much time in your schedule.
Okay, dig it. All right, so Beth asks, for those who are overwhelmed by switches and more involved technology, what is the basic equipment someone should buy to just upgrade their executive presence?
Okay, one of the most basic things you should buy is a separate microphone. I didn't talk about audio before. You want to have a separate microphone. Now, it can be like the one that I just showed you, the Yeti mic, $70, $80, and it plugs right into my computer, but it clearly picks up my audio so that others don't have to strain. The moment you make other people strain, that degrades and stresses their experience. So one thing, a microphone that is separate from your computer and separate from whatever device you listen to folks on. While that's acceptable, that's in that basic level. So a microphone. Now, next thing is if you can get a higher quality camera so that you are clearer for people to look at. Those are the two. I would say that you can learn the Zoom codes to toggle back and forth between sharing screen. So you don't have to go, wait a second, okay. You can learn those codes. So if you have a good microphone and you have a higher quality than just in your computer camera, you're pretty set to go.
Yeah. All right. Nyasha asks, we got probably time for 3 more questions.
Okay.
Anna, how do you think we can use the tools and skills you mentioned to expand exposure to Rotary?
Ah, that's great. So one of the things is people want to know right now, well, what's it going to look like if I come to Rotary? How much will I get a chance to talk? One of the ways that you could expand it is to have networking events where you do breakouts, where people have those treasure hunts and they have guided ways of interacting where you quickly are toggling between the rooms. As the president of the National Speakers Association, I had to transform our 4-day multi-million-dollar event into a new product. And we extended it over the course of 4 months. But during the 3 days we were together, I did things like having digital dine-arounds, having meet the pros, having sessions where people got the chance to really connect and move in small chunks of time so they could meet a lot of people just like we would at the tables if we were in lunch together. Breaking it out into smaller rooms, frequently mixing it so that people get the sense of, yeah, I really get to know people, not just all of us together, hundreds of people at a time.
She's frozen up. Didn't expect that to happen, did we?
I'm frozen?
Yeah, just then. It's ironic. I get it, but that's okay. That's why we prep for these things. All right, let's move along before it glitches again. 2 more questions. Oh, somebody asked, Sue asked, what was the brand of the microphone? You said Yeti, correct?
That's right, the Yeti microphone. Simple, solid, durable.
All right, 2 more quick questions. Anna, can you share the names of the equipment you have in your setup? Oh, it's in the setup after the meeting. Oh, and you look beautiful. That's awesome. Maybe just throw that in the chat. I should have read the rest of that. That's funny. What are your, that's the last question then. What are your thoughts regarding virtual backgrounds?
Okay, when it comes to virtual backgrounds, you want to be very judicious about this, because virtual backgrounds, if you are hiding a mess behind you, by all means, but definitely make it a contextual background. Don't just make it the San Francisco Bridge. I didn't notice anybody was using that bridge, but make it something that is part of what you're doing if you're doing a professional engagement. But most importantly, if you're going to use a virtual background, make sure you're well lit. Because what makes backgrounds grainy and hard is when there's not enough light around you to differentiate between you and the background. Probably just as important is make sure what you're wearing doesn't have a pattern, because that makes the camera work really hard to figure out what the pattern is, and then it makes it harder for the virtual background as well.
Yeah, all right.
All right, so do we have time for my last tip?
Oh, I think you can squeeze that in if you've got 10 seconds.
All right, so one of the last tips is to make sure that you give people a way to share with you their experience. So I invite you to grab your phone, pull open the camera, and scan this QR code. In the chat, Mariah will also drop it for a link to get to this QR code, because I want to hear from you. What was your experience today? What was your experience in one word that describes your program today? This is one of the interesting ways to get people to tell you about their experience in your event, in your meeting, to get the feedback. It's anonymous, but they actually get a chance to share with you. Enlightening, informative, engaging, awesome, thank you, interactive, insightful. All of these things create a visual image that at the end becomes an asset to you about people's experience of the event. So that's called menti.com, and it will be in the blueprint checklist that Mariah is going to drop my email and my LinkedIn in the chat for you. So connect with me either way, and we'll be able to get you that virtual executive presence blueprint checklist. Thanks, everybody.
Hey, Anna, just one bonus question.
Yeah.
How did your year as the president of National Speakers Association become affected by the pandemic, and any reflections, lessons learned?
Oh my goodness, yes. So in February, I was leading the second board meeting of the year at our big winter conference. And we were talking about this thing, COVID, was it going to affect us? from that moment forward, my leadership had to completely transform the association. We found a new way to make a speakers association profitable, but it required us to take the modalities of the moment and make them our superpower. And so we actually pulled online our content, and instead of just having it be breakouts that happened at the live events, we had them start in May, every Monday and every Thursday. In fact, we probably will never go back to breakouts the way they were, because people now got a chance to gestate on the material in time that they needed it. And so we've actually come to designing an entire new membership model because of this. So it was an interesting year to be able to completely change the model of a 47-year-old association. One of the things past presidents always say is, may the challenges that arise meet your skill sets. And so it was a good year to be president.
Sounds like a whole nother long program.
Kim? It is a whole nother long program.
Yeah, if you do this on purpose, I swear, just to like, let me rip out my hair. Anna, thank you. Awesome, as always. You should think about rejoining the club, for goodness sakes, because we miss you. All right, on to some business.